Hello there, my name is Ebuka, the plant icon based here in Lagos, Nigeria. And in today's video, we're going to be doing something very different and rather malicious, deliciously petty, if you ask me. We're going to be designing the perfect plant setup for our worst enemy.
What?
I know we're all God-fearing Christians on this page, but every now and then we need to give our enemies a taste of their own medicine. So we're going to be curating the perfect plant setup for them that will ensure that they are constantly frustrated, the way they frustrate us. They are constantly on edge, the way they keep us on edge. And they're constantly second-guessing themselves, the way they have us constantly second-guessing ourselves. So please, without much ado, sit down. This is going to be a fun one. Grab your notepad and let's plot together. Now, first things first, girls, we can't be too obvious. So we have to be careful and smart about the type of plants we select for them. We cannot obviously select plants that are notoriously known for being difficult. No, that's a rookie move. You don't want to give them a calathea. You don't want to give them alocasia. They can easily search. Information is quite rampant these days, so they can easily search and find out that, oh, this person is trying to set me up with this plant. No. We want to start by ensuring that we recommend plants that are deceptively easy. They don't exactly die quickly and won't die quickly on them. Oh, but they are going to put them on a roller coaster ride. Oh, Jesus. These are plants that are universally claimed to be easy, but you and I know better, especially if you're a long-time follower of this channel. You and I know better that these plants may be easy, but they are certainly high maintenance. Babes, the first plant we must recommend to them is a Monstera deliciosa. Yes, a Monstera deliciosa, preferably one that has so many vines in a pot. You want to gift them one that has multiple vines in a pot. The more vines that they have in that pot, the better for them. Okay, so a Monstera deliciosa. And also we can throw in a bed of paradise. Oh. You and I know that in a couple of weeks, those plants will look like a hot friggin' mess, while conveniently still being alive, permanently gaslighting them as long as those plants continue to exist in their collection. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing we're going to do is that we're going to ensure that every single plant that comes into their collection, or every single plant we give them or recommend to them, is a fast-growing plant. We do not ever want to ensure that they have the occasional slow-growing plant. No, baby, that defeats the whole point. Remember, we want them to be so involved in plant chores and so neck deep in maintaining their collection that they barely even have time for themselves. Talk less of, we hating on us. So we want to ensure that we give them fast-growing plants. Those plants that will push out maybe a leaf or two a week. Yes, but not just your regular fast-growing plants. No. Babes, we have to be crafty. We have to be smart. We have to be low-key manipulative. No, we want to give them fast-growing plants that need support. Aggressively fast-climbing plants that need a pole to support them. We're not going to recommend a trailing pothos. No, a trailing philodendron. No, a fast-growing climbing plant. And I've got a few recommendations for you guys. I came prepared. The Monstera deliciosa. Remember, the more vines it has in that pot, because each vine is gonna need to latch onto something as it grows. Also, the more vines in that pot, the better. So a very bushy Monstera deliciosa that has lots of vines. We want to get them one or two or even perhaps three of that. Okay. Yes. And then we also want to get them a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. Perhaps if they say, okay, these Monsteras are too big for me, you're like, okay, wait, hang on. I'm going to get you a mini Monstera, a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. Perfect candidate, fast growing, but definitely needs to latch onto something and needs support. And then we're going to throw in Philodendron perissivade. That plant is basically an all-round disappointment, but it also needs to climb onto something and grows very aggressively. So perfect candidates. Okay, so those three plants are a good way to start, and they're affordable. You can always give them multiple pieces anytime you feel like. But of course, that's not all, because climbing plants obviously need a support. So when they reach out to you and they're like, girl, please, this plant that you gifted me, it needs something to latch onto. It's tilting. It's growing fast, but it's tilting. Help me. You're going to recommend a pole, but not just any pole. Oh, no. You don't want to give them a bamboo pole, God forbid that, or a plank. No, you want a pole made out of something that dries out really fast. Remember, girlies, we want to keep our worst enemies so preoccupied with their plants, so on edge with their plants, struggling to maintain their plant collection, that they barely have our time. So don't sleep. You want to ensure that you give them a pole with a substance in it that dries out really fast. That way they constantly have to keep hydrating that pole. I wonder what that could be. Sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss. So you're going to ensure that you only recommend sphagnum moss poles for them. When they ask you if there are other poles that exist, tell them yes, they do, but sphagnum moss poles, specifically sphagnum moss poles, they're the best. In fact, you can even be a good Samaritan and help them buy the sphagnum moss and the poles. Oh, they won't know what they've gotten themselves into. Now, so far, what we have is a setup of so-called easy but extremely fast-growing plants that all need poles, all in poles that dry out really fast. I'm proud of us. It's coming together, babes, but we're not done. We can take it up a notch. Now, you want the soil that you're going to recommend and possibly even gift them to be extremely chunky. Extremely chunky. I mean, the ones that have the perlite that is almost as big as your fist. You want it to be so chunky to the point that the moment they water the plant, in milliseconds, the water just drains out fast. Girlies, hang on. Let me explain. Why do we want this for them? Because we want them to keep having to water their plants every 5 minutes. So the goal is not to focus on soil retention. God forbid. That way they're going to have time to, start hating on us and coming for us. No, you want a chunky mix that dries out and drains so fast that every 5 minutes they're watering that plant. Girlies, but we're not done. You thought we were done? You thought we're going to let them go that easily? No. We still have a couple more things we need to include in their collection. You're going to make sure you advise that they grow their plants in terracotta pots. Terracotta pots. If they insist otherwise, you tell them, no, terracotta pots are actually good for the environment. They're organic, especially unglazed terracotta pots. Do not give them the bright idea to buy terracotta pots that have been painted over or glazed. And always insist that they pot directly in those terracotta pots. And if they hesitate, because sometimes our enemies can be quite astute and they might figure out that something's wrong. But if they hesitate, you tell them that no, don't you know that terracotta pots are porous, so they help to reduce chances of overwatering. We don't want them to realize that underwatering is just as bad as overwatering, okay? Remember, we want to keep them in a constant state where they are always watering their plants. That way they do not have our time. Every 5 minutes, they have to always water their plants. Bonus tip if they live in a dry, hot climate like Arizona, like Texas during the summer. Bonus tip for you if you recommend that terracotta pot to them. You can even come over to their house and help them do the reporting. Like, oh, let me plot it for you. This soil is not chunky enough. Let's make it even more chunky, right? Oh, not to digress from our enemies, but doesn't this sound a lot like advice that a lot of our favorite influencers give us about taking care of plants? I don't know. Maybe you're their worst enemy, because I certainly. Let's focus on our own worst enemy. Okay, so we're going to ensure that every single pot we buy for them and every single pot their plant grows in is a small one. We don't want them to get those big, 10-inch pots. God forbid. No, we're defeating the whole purpose. Remember, girlies, we want to ensure that they are constantly watering their plants every 5 minutes. So God forbid you get a pot that can retain some water even in that terracotta pot and that chunky soil because of its size. No, you want a small. This is big and this is ceramic, certainly not this. Oh my god, no, you want something small. You want a 4-inch, 6-inch, okay? And you want to ensure that they pot their plants in that. Remember, you can always come and help them to pot the plants in those small pots, so you ensure that you don't miss any part of this step. All right? And whenever they come to you and say, oh my god, my plant is root bound, I think it needs a bigger pot, you want to ensure that they expand by just an inch. Just an inch. You don't want them to expand by 5 inches. No, God forbid. That way the soil retains more moisture and they water less and can have time to hit on you and I. We don't want that. You want to ensure that they expand by maybe 1 inch. Worst case scenario, they expand by 2 inches. Make sure the spot size is always small, okay? We can't have messy right now. We're too deep into this, so we can't have messy. We have to go all the way. I know the whole plan is to ensure that they water their plants every 5 minutes, right? So that way they don't have our time. But we also want to ensure that we encourage them to keep their plants in certain areas that are harder for them to reach when they want to water them. That way they can get frustrated every now and then. Remember, they frustrate us every now and then. So you want to also frustrate them when they keep that plant high above their floating shelf, high up into the ceiling, hanging so up their high ceiling. That way, when they want to reach and water such plants, they might even break their back in the process. or perhaps we went a bit too far there, or perhaps the plant may spill and land on their head. These are the things that way they will be frustrated. They will know what it feels like to frustrate other people, and they'll be more conscious of that. So please ensure that some, not all their plants, okay? Some of their plants are kept in very impractical areas, high up the ceiling, high up the roof, high up the highest of shelves. And so the occasional spillage and the occasional back pain can be experienced. They can experience that from time to time. Things are getting quite heated, but we're not done. We're not done yet. One last one. We need to ensure that we waste their time, their energy, their hard-earned money, their space, and also destroy the ambience and decoration of their home. And there's one easy way to do that. One very, very easy way to do that. You're going to recommend cheap grow lights from Temu for them. Don't tell them about the likes of Sansi and Soltech. No. In fact, discourage them. Tell them that those things are unnecessarily expensive. Let them go to those cheap Temu grow lights. I should know because I've been there. I've been there. Those cheap Temu grow lights that shine purple lights. Ensure that the ones that shine purple, red, blue, and then the ones that have those long tentacles, the ones that are made of like the cheapest plastic, the cheapest and the most obvious plastic. God. That way you've not only ruined the decor and the ambience of their home stops looking cozy and starts looking like a cheap nightclub. But also, those lights don't do anything. Those lights will perfectly gaslight them the way they perfectly gaslight us every single day. They will make them believe that they're actually doing something. I remember, because they have fast-growing plants, they will see the occasional leaf that grows from time to time, and they'll be convinced that those cheap $10 Temu lights are actually doing something, when all they are doing is making their home look hideous. Mission accomplished. At the end of the day, guys, our enemies are going to be so busy in their purple looking plant room, extending those moss poles every 5 minutes and watering plants and wondering why their plants aren't thriving, even though their soil is extremely chunky. That they're not going to have time to hate on us or to gossip about us or to gaslight us or to frustrate us. Oh my god. And we can actually now go about minding our business and living a peaceful life. But babes, not to be a gossip monger, because at the end of the day, we're both two Christians, we're both two God-loving Christians. But doesn't this describe your own plant setup? Doesn't this describe a lot of the advice that your favorite plant influencers give you? I'm not trying to start something, babes. We're doing this for our worst enemy. We don't want to make enemies of ourselves, okay? But I'm just saying this to let you know how some of you set up yourself to be frustrated in this hobby, and some of you set up yourself to be burnt out. Some of you actually are designing your collection like you are your own worst enemy. Girlies, let's do better. But thankfully, the Lord will have it that you're on the right page. And I'm going to ensure that you do not end up being like your worst enemy, or having a setup that is similar to that of the worst enemy of any human being. And if you stick around, like, share, and subscribe, you won't end up being your own worst enemy. Also, check out my YouTube membership for more of my shenanigans and my antics. I guarantee you it's going to be the best money you ever spent on YouTube. Till then, I really hope you found this video useful, and I shall see you in the next one. Oh, let's keep the conversation and the gossip flowing in the comment section. Till then, see you the next one, girlies. Bye, my loves.